If you were the youngest model to ever grace the cover of Vogue, had 6 billboards in Times Square at once, and earned millions before you could even vote, you might think life had given you everything. But for Niki Taylor, the all-American supermodel who defined 90s beauty, having everything meant having more to lose. At 20, she found her teenage sister dead on their parents' floor. 6 years later, she flatlined twice on an operating table after a car crashed into a pole. This is the story of how one woman lost her sister, nearly lost her life, and discovered that survival itself becomes a different kind of beauty. Niki Taylor's modeling career started the way most teenage dreams begin, with someone noticing potential where others saw awkwardness. At 13 in South Florida, scouts saw something in the blonde teenager that transcended typical prettiness. Within a year, she'd landed her first 17 cover. By 15, she'd done something no American model her age had achieved, appeared on the cover of Vogue. L'Oreal signed her to a cosmetics contract that same year, making her their youngest face ever. The numbers from this period tell their own story of dominance. In 1991, at 16, People magazine named her to their Most Beautiful People list, the youngest person to receive that recognition. CoverGirl came calling in 1992, offering the 17-year-old a contract that made her the first model under 18 to represent their brand nationally. Fashion houses from Versace to Liz Claiborne competed for her campaigns. Her earnings reflected this demand. Forbes ranked her 6th among the world's highest-paid models in 1994, with an estimated income of $2.4 million. For context, she was still a teenager raising infant twin sons she'd had at 19. The boy's father was no longer in the picture, but Niki's career provided more than enough stability. She was featured on 6 billboards in Times Square simultaneously, reported at the time as a first for a model, and still cited as a unique feat. The pinnacle arrived in May 1996 with what the media called the Niki Six. She appeared on the covers of Allure, Vogue, Elle, Marie Claire, Self, and Shape in the same month. The magazines hadn't coordinated this sweep. It happened organically because every editor wanted Niki Taylor on their cover. It was unprecedented and made clear just in demand she was. No model had commanded that kind of visibility in a single month. Yet, beneath the professional triumphs, Niki was navigating young motherhood while maintaining her image as fashion's golden girl. Photo shoots in Paris meant leaving her twin boys with her parents in Florida. Red-eye flights became routine. The juggling act looked effortless in photographs, where her fresh-faced appeal never wavered. She embodied what America wanted to see in its supermodels: wholesome beauty with just enough edge to sell both cosmetics and haute couture. Krissy Taylor's entry into modeling seemed inevitable once photographers noticed the little blonde girl accompanying her famous sister to shoots. 3 years younger than Niki, Krissy possessed the same tall frame and all-American features that had launched her sister's career. At 11, she began appearing informally in test shots with Niki. Photographers loved the dynamic between them, 2 golden sisters who genuinely adored each other. By the time Krissy turned 14, she'd signed with Niki's agency and started booking her own jobs. The fashion world couldn't resist the narrative of sister models conquering the industry together. CoverGirl capitalized on this appeal, featuring both Taylor sisters in campaigns that emphasized their natural chemistry. Side by side in advertisements, they represented an aspirational version of sisterhood: beautiful, successful, and inseparable. Their relationship transcended professional partnership. Friends described them as genuine best friends who chose to spend free time together even when work didn't demand it. They shared hotel rooms on location, practiced runway walks in airport terminals, and called each other constantly when assignments separated them. Niki, protective in the way older sisters often are, guided Krissy through the industry's challenges while allowing her to develop her own identity as a model. Krissy's career trajectory followed a familiar but impressive path. By 17, she'd accumulated 13 magazine covers, including 17, Cosmopolitan, and Elle. Yet those close to her noticed a difference between the sisters' ambitions. While Niki thrived on the energy of fashion weeks and international campaigns, Krissy remained grounded in simpler pleasures. She still lived at home, had just attended her high school prom, and spent free time roller skating or baking cookies with their mother Barbara. The contrast revealed itself in small moments. During downtime on sets, Niki would study upcoming schedules and review contracts while Krissy would chat with makeup artists about their families. Friends remembered Krissy once saying she wanted to be a housewife eventually, a statement that seemed incongruous with her rising status but perfectly aligned with her personality. She approached modeling as an interesting chapter, not a defining identity. Their final professional collaboration came in the summer of 1995 for Ocean Drive magazine's July-August issue. The shoot captured them laughing on a Miami beach, hair whipping in the coastal wind. Neither knew these would be their last photos together. In the images, they appear as they always had. Two sisters who happened to be models, not two models who happened to be sisters. The distinction mattered to them, even if the fashion world struggled to understand it. The morning of July 2nd, 1995 began like countless others in the Taylor household in Pembroke Pines, Florida. Niki, home for a brief break between assignments, woke early to check on her infant twin sons. Walking past Krissy's room, something felt wrong. She found her 17-year-old sister on the floor, unresponsive and cold to the touch. The 911 call captured Niki's mounting panic. "She's not breathing. She's cold," she told the operator while their father, Ken, a Florida Highway Patrol lieutenant trained in emergency response, attempted CPR on his youngest daughter. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but their efforts proved futile. Krissy Taylor was pronounced dead at Memorial Hospital West at 5:39 a.m. The fashion world reacted with shock and speculation. How could a healthy 17-year-old model collapse without warning? Initial reports focused on Krissy's mild asthma and her occasional use of Primatene Mist, an over-the-counter inhaler containing epinephrine. Some medical experts suggested the stimulant might have triggered a fatal arrhythmia. Others whispered darker theories, that Krissy had been abusing the inhaler for its mild stimulant effects, or that an eating disorder had weakened her heart. The Taylor family endured these rumors while grappling with their loss. Those who knew Krissy rejected the speculation entirely. She didn't drink or experiment with substances, maintained a healthy relationship with food, and had shown no signs of distress in the days before her death. The absence of clear answers made the tragedy harder to process. Weeks passed before medical examiners discovered the truth. Initial autopsies found no obvious disease, injury, or substance abuse. The family hired independent experts to analyze tissue samples from Krissy's heart. These tests revealed arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, or ARVD, a rare genetic condition where normal heart muscle is gradually replaced by scar tissue and fat. The disease often shows no symptoms before causing sudden cardiac arrest in young people, particularly athletes. The epinephrine in Krissy's inhaler may have exacerbated her heart's vulnerability, but ARVD was the underlying killer. For Niki, the diagnosis provided answers but no comfort. She'd lost her closest confidant, the person who understood the unique pressures of their shared world. At 20, she faced a grief that felt insurmountable. Years later, she would admit to developing a dependency on prescription medications during this period, pills that numbed the pain of waking up in a world without Krissy. The modeling industry, uncomfortable with genuine tragedy, expected Niki to return to work quickly. She did, partly for financial necessity and partly because staying busy meant less time to think. But she moved through photo shoots like a ghost, professionally perfect but emotionally absent. Photographers noticed the change in her eyes. The sparkle that had made her America's golden girl had dimmed. She was still beautiful, still capable of selling products, but something essential had shifted. 6 years after Krissy's death, Niki had constructed a functional life around her grief. At 26, she continued modeling while raising her twin boys, then 6 years old. She'd learned to smile convincingly for cameras and deflect questions about her sister with practiced ease. On April 28, 2001, she was in Atlanta for a casual evening with friends, a normal night that would become anything but ordinary. James Renegar, 27 and described in reports as Niki's boyfriend at the time, was driving his Nissan Maxima through Atlanta's Buckhead neighborhood. Niki sat in the passenger seat, likely discussing weekend plans or upcoming work commitments. Then Renegar's cell phone rang. He glanced down to answer it, a reflexive motion that took perhaps 2 seconds. The car veered off the road and slammed into a utility pole with devastating force. The front end crumpled on impact, but at first, the damage didn't seem catastrophic. Niki was conscious, wearing her seatbelt, and told her companions she felt okay. Renegar and another friend sustained only minor injuries, and for a moment, everyone believed they had escaped serious harm. Within minutes, that assumption unraveled. Niki began experiencing sharp, escalating abdominal pain that made breathing difficult. The seatbelt that had saved her from being thrown forward had also concentrated the full force of the impact across her torso. Paramedics rushed her to Grady Memorial Hospital as her condition rapidly deteriorated. In the trauma bay, surgeons quickly realized the true extent of Niki's internal injuries. The impact had torn her liver almost completely in half, triggering catastrophic internal bleeding. By the time she reached the operating table, she had already lost nearly 80% of her blood volume. As the medical team raced to control the hemorrhaging and repair the damage, Niki's heart stopped. They brought her back, continued operating, and then her heart stopped again. Twice on that operating table, Niki Taylor technically died. Each time, the medical team managed to restart her heart, but the situation remained critical. Over the next 24 hours, she required more than 100 units of donated blood, each unit representing a stranger's decision to donate, though neither they nor Niki knew their paths would intersect this way. The hours stretched into days with Niki in a medically induced coma. Her parents flew to Atlanta, prepared to lose a second daughter. Barbara Taylor, who'd already buried Krissy, now sat vigil in another hospital, watching another daughter fight for survival. She later said the possibility of losing Niki felt like more than she could bear. Lightning doesn't strike twice, except sometimes it does. Ken and Barbara made a crucial decision during those early days. Since the twins were too young for ICU visits, Barbara taped photographs to the ceiling above Niki's bed. Images of her sons, her parents, even her dogs. If Niki's subconscious could perceive anything, they wanted her to see reasons to keep fighting. The statistics of Niki's recovery read like a medical improbability. She underwent about 40 surgical procedures in the first few months after the crash, eventually totaling more than 50 over her full recovery. Metal rods were implanted in her spine to stabilize vertebrae damaged by the impact. She spent weeks in intensive care, first on a ventilator, slowly relearning how to breathe independently. Then came the careful progression from sitting up to standing to taking tentative steps down hospital corridors. Each milestone came with setbacks. Surgical sites became infected, requiring additional operations. The spinal rods caused chronic pain that would linger for years. Her liver, though repaired, never functioned quite the same. The supermodel who had once commanded thousands per photo shoot now celebrated something far smaller, managing to eat solid food without assistance. During conscious moments, Niki became fixated on one question: whose blood was keeping her alive? The more than 100 units she'd received came from anonymous donors across Atlanta, people who had given blood in the weeks before her accident. They'd never know that their routine act would converge to save a single life. The randomness of that salvation haunted and inspired her. Physical therapy filled her days once she was strong enough to start rehabilitation. Muscles that had atrophied during her 6-week coma needed rebuilding. The surgical scars across her abdomen required careful treatment to heal, though they would always remain visible reminders. She had to relearn balance, every movement complicated by the rods limiting her spine's flexibility. After about 3 months, Niki finally left the hospital. The woman who walked out bore little resemblance to the one who had entered. Weight loss had left her frail. Scars traced a roadmap of survival across her torso. The steel in her back meant she would never move quite the same way again. Yet something deeper had changed beyond the physical trauma. In those moments near death, Niki had found unexpected clarity. The thought that pulled her back had nothing to do with magazine covers or contracts. It centered on her sons, whose photos hung above her hospital bed. She'd also thought of her mother, Barbara, and how she couldn't bear to see her lose another daughter. Recovery stretched on long after discharge, with additional spinal procedures and years of lingering pain. She couldn't lift her children the way she wanted or chase them around the park. The physical limits became part of her new normal, reminders of both survival and fragility. In 2013, the American Red Cross arranged a reunion that closed a remarkable circle. Niki met 13 of the blood donors who had unknowingly saved her life. Teachers, students, retirees, people who had simply rolled up their sleeves. She hugged each one, calling them her personal superheroes. One had donated blood for the first time just days before her accident. Another had been a lifelong donor. Together, they embodied the quiet generosity that had made her survival possible. The modeling world had largely written off Niki Taylor by the mid-2000s. Supermodels who disappeared for years rarely returned, especially after publicized trauma. The industry preferred fresh faces without complicated histories. Niki no longer cared about winning its approval. Her focus had shifted toward building a different kind of life. Love arrived unexpectedly in the form of Bernie Lamar, a NASCAR driver she met through mutual friends. Their wedding marked a new chapter focused on family rather than fame. A daughter arrived, then a son a couple of years later. Combined with her twin boys from her first marriage, Niki now had 4 children spanning different ages and stages. The expansion of her family coincided with a gradual return to public life, though on dramatically different terms. She launched a fragrance called Begin, the name itself acknowledging her restart. Television offered opportunities that didn't require the physical demands of photo shoots. She later co-hosted Make Me a Supermodel, mentoring aspiring models while keeping boundaries around her personal story. Her stint on The Celebrity Apprentice had a clear purpose: to raise money for the American Red Cross, the organization that helped save her life. She lasted 3 weeks, earning $35,000 for blood donation initiatives. The show's competitive format didn't suit her, but the platform gave her a chance to publicly thank those who had given her a second chance at life. The real surprise came years later when Niki began accepting modeling assignments again. These weren't the high-fashion editorials of her youth, but thoughtful projects that reflected maturity and resilience. Paper featured her in a spread celebrating models over 40, while Flaunt highlighted her evolution rather than perfection. The images didn't erase her past. They acknowledged it, showing a woman who had rebuilt herself and was still very much part of the conversation. Not long after, a defining moment arrived in 2017 when Niki posed for Swimsuits for All alongside Ashley Graham and Teyana Taylor. The campaign explicitly celebrated body diversity, featuring women of different ages, sizes, and backgrounds. Niki, in her early 40s, wore a red one-piece that made space for the history her body carries. No retouching erased the truth of her journey. The response overwhelmed her. Women wrote to thank her for showing that beauty doesn't require perfection. Young models reached out for advice on navigating the industry's pressures. Blood donation organizations reported increased interest after she shared her story in interviews accompanying the campaign. CoverGirl, the brand that had first signed teenage Niki, approached her again in 2021. 30 years after her initial contract, they offered her a new campaign focused on authentic beauty at every age. The full circle moment held particular significance. The fresh-faced teenager from the original ads had become a woman with visible history, and the brand wanted exactly that version of her. Her advocacy work expanded beyond modeling. Every summer, when blood supplies traditionally run low, Niki participates in Red Cross campaigns encouraging donation. She shares her story at hospitals and donation centers, meeting current donors and inspiring new ones. The message remains consistent. Ordinary people's routine decisions can create extraordinary outcomes. Nashville suits Niki Taylor in ways New York or Los Angeles never could. The Tennessee city offers anonymity when she wants it and community when she needs it. Her home just outside the city, shared with her husband Bernie Lamar and their blended family, favors comfort over display. Gardens she tends herself. Children's sports gear scattered across the yard. A life that might seem ordinary if you didn't know its history. The twins who motivated her survival from that ICU ceiling are adults now, building lives of their own. Family milestones still fill her calendar, from birthdays to long dinners around the table. She embraces these moments with the same intensity she once brought to modeling, capturing everyday scenes with the appreciation of someone who knows how quickly everything can change. When she speaks about Krissy now, 30 years after that July morning, tears still come. The grief has evolved but never disappeared. She thinks about who Krissy might have become, likely the housewife she'd mentioned wanting to be, probably with children of her own. These parallel lives that never happened haunt Niki's happiness, adding depth to her gratitude. Her mother Barbara channels her own grief into action with the Cardiac Arrhythmias Research and Education Foundation. The organization works to identify young people at risk for conditions like ARVD, potentially preventing other families from experiencing sudden loss. Niki supports these efforts, understanding that Krissy's death might save others through awareness it generated. The modeling work continues, selectively and purposefully. Niki accepts assignments that align with her evolved understanding of beauty. She mentors young models, particularly those struggling with industry pressures or personal challenges. Her advice differs markedly from typical industry guidance. She talks about maintaining identity beyond the camera, building financial independence, and recognizing when to walk away. Her Instagram account, followed by hundreds of thousands, mixes professional photos with family snapshots. A CoverGirl campaign image might be followed by a video of her gardening. A throwback to a 90s magazine cover might precede a photo from a school pickup line. This integration of past and present, professional and personal, reflects her refusal to compartmentalize her existence. Physical reminders persist daily. The spinal rods still cause discomfort, particularly during weather changes. The abdominal scars remain visible, their presence now familiar rather than shocking. She can't run the way she once did, can't lift heavy objects without consideration. Her body carries its history in ways that no amount of fame or money can erase. Yet when asked about regrets, Niki focuses on presence rather than absence. She got to fall in love again after believing that part of her had died with Krissy. She watched her children grow into adults, something that almost didn't happen. She discovered purpose beyond beauty, though beauty remained part of her story. The supermodel who lost everything didn't actually lose everything. She lost what she thought everything meant. The perfect image Niki Taylor projected in the 90s was real but incomplete, a partial truth that magazines could sell. The complete truth includes a sister who died at 17, a woman who flatlined twice at 26, and a survivor who learned that scars don't diminish beauty but deepen it. Perhaps this explains why Niki's story resonates beyond fashion nostalgia. She represents a different kind of American dream, one where rebuilding matters more than building, where survival itself becomes an achievement worth celebrating. The teenager who broke modeling records became a woman who broke expectations about what comes after tragedy. When blood donors save a life, they rarely learn whose. When someone loses a sibling, they rarely become a public figure whose grief plays out in headlines. When a mother nearly dies, she doesn't usually return to swimsuit campaigns in her 40s with surgical scars visible. Niki Taylor did all of this, not because she had to, but because each choice honored both her survival and Krissy's absence. The billboards in Times Square have long since changed. The magazine covers from the 90s sit in archives. But somewhere in Nashville, a grandmother tends her garden, texts her children, and prepares for another Red Cross event. She carries Krissy with her, along with the blood of strangers, the titanium in her spine, and the knowledge that losing everything sometimes means finding what actually matters. Her beauty at 60 looks nothing like it did at 16, yet it might be more powerful. Not because trauma made her beautiful. Trauma simply made her. The beauty comes from what she did with that making, how she rebuilt from fragments, how she chose to show us the scars rather than hide them. In showing us her reconstructed life, Niki Taylor revealed something about resilience that no perfect photograph ever could. Some models become icons through flawless presentation. Others become human through flawed survival. Niki Taylor achieved both, though the second matters more. She lived through losses that should have broken her, survived injuries that should have killed her, and returned to show us that sometimes the most beautiful thing isn't perfection but presence. Simply being here, scars and all, when every odd suggested you wouldn't be.